Hello, third graders. How are we doing? Today we're going to do some reading, but before we get to reading, I have some questions for you. 1. Who is sitting next to you? 2. What subject are we working on during this block? 3. Where are we located for the lesson? 4. When do you have lunch? 5. What do you like about school? In the next 30 seconds, I want you to jot down in your notebook the answer to these questions. You can either write one word or one sentence. Go. So right now, if we were in the classroom, the students would be writing down in their notebooks, and then I would just kind of walk around the room and just cold call. So I would just call on different students and ask them like each of the 5 questions just to see their answers. And then if it's virtual, I'll show you what it would be like. All right, great job, third graders. 30 seconds is up. Now let's look at the questions. 1, who is sitting next to you? Well, you're at home, right? So maybe a loved one sitting next to you, maybe a pet sitting next to you, maybe you're just by yourself learning, and that's completely okay too. 2, what subject are we working on during this block? You're probably thinking, duh, Miss Rideau, we're working on reading now. 3, where are we located for the lesson? There could be a lot of places you're sitting, right? You could be sitting at your desk, you could be sitting in your kitchen, you could be sitting in your living room, you could be sitting in your bedroom. There's a bunch of different places. When do you have lunch? You're probably thinking, well, it kind of depends on the day, right? Sometimes you have it in the morning, sometimes you have it at 12, sometimes you may have a late lunch. And 5, what do you like about school? I'm sure this was an easy one. You were able to answer what you like about school. Well, you're probably thinking now, wait, thought we were doing reading. Why are you asking me a million questions? Well, there's a reason for it. Just like all great readers do, they ask questions when they read. Can we think about what kind of questions we may ask when we read? Let's see. When we are reading, we ask questions based on the 5 W's and 1 H. Can anyone recall? For the next 30 seconds, I want you to think about what these questions could be. Go. So now, again, if I was in the classroom, I would have the kids turn and talk about what they think the questions are. But since this is a virtual one, I thought it would be good to pause the presentation for 30 seconds and just let the kids start to think a little bit. So I have them moving on the other side of the screen too, and they're not just sitting idle oh, she's just going to tell me all the information. So then virtually, here's how it would go. Great job, third graders. You were able to think in 30 seconds about the 5 W's and 1 H. Let's see. Do we have any of them in common? The 5 W's are who, what, where, when, and why. Did those sound familiar? I sure hope they did. But wait, I only gave you the 5 W's. Something's missing. That's right, we have the H question, and that is our how. I hope you had questions that were very similar to mine. You thought of the same exact 5 W's and 1 H. All right, let's keep going. Before we ask some questions, though, there's something we want to review. So, quick review. We're going to do a thinking job, which we've done before. First, you're going to think about the question I ask you, and then it's your job to tell someone. So if you're at home, find someone at home you could tell your response to. All right, ready? The question is, what is setting? You have 30 seconds to think and then share what the setting is. Go. So then this would be the same thing if we were in school. So first they would think what is setting, and then their job would be to tell a partner or someone else in the room. But since we're virtual, I would recommend that they talk to someone at home, oh, what do you think the setting is? And then they would tell it aloud. And this is another thing I was just doing to get the students involved in the lesson, to think about what they could do. All right, great job, readers. Your 30 seconds is up. Let's see. What is the setting? We just did this a few days ago. Setting is the place, time, and environment of the story. So wait, I think I see some of the 5 W's here. We have where the story takes place, when the story takes place, or the time in the story, and what the environment is in the story. Those sound awfully familiar from the 5 W's. I think we have 3 of them here. When we're looking at setting, we reviewed last week, we did some picture walks, right? And not only did we read, but we were able to do picture walks, and from the picture walk, you were able to tell me the different settings of stories. So really quickly, let's just review with the picture here. There's no words, but we can still think about the setting. So, looking at the Bitmoji picture, where does Miss Rideau look like she is? Looks like she's in the mountains. When is it? Looks like it's summertime, right? What is flying behind Miss Rideau? Ooh, the butterflies. Or what is shining in the sky? The sun. So you see how we were able to say, oh, what's the place? Where is she? What's the time? What season? And what's the environment like? And that's what we worked on the last couple of days. But I just wanted to review this because these, as you could see, have 3 of our important questions here, which can be used when we are writing questions for our stories. Okay, next, quick review. We're going to do a think and jot. But this time, readers, we forgot to do something last time, and that's put on our thinking caps. So what you're going to do is you're going to put on your thinking cap in a couple seconds, and when we do that, I want you to think, what is the plot? All right, ready, readers? Get your thinking caps. Put them on. All right, start thinking. What is the plot? When you're done thinking, I want you to jot it down. All right, go. So here in the classroom, we would do the same thing, whereas I would have them put their thinking cap on, and they would jot like what the plot is. And then I figured like virtually, even if they're at home, it would still be a good idea for them to jot down what the plot is and think about it. And like it would be the same thing where they would be given 30 seconds to think about what the plot is and then jot it down. Okay, great job, readers. Sure, you were able to write down a lot of things about the plot because we just did that a couple weeks ago. Let's do a quick review. The plot is the structure of the story. It is the actions which take place in the story. This sounds really familiar to me. Because I think we were just saying about how the plot is like the events in the story, right? We had our little chart here where the exposition was like the beginning, where we meet our characters. Then we have the rising actions, which usually some events happen. But then something usually goes wrong. We have the climax in the story, which is usually the problem. Then after we have the problem, I remember someone was telling me that once we have the problem, we have to solve it. So then our following action is usually ways or events that lead up to the solution, which is our last part. So yeah, that's our little review of plot. I know we had a lot more to say last time, but just quickly, I hope I was able to jog your memory for plot. All right, now let's see what kind of questions readers ask. We ask questions when reading such as, who is the character? Think about when we read Stregonona last week. Who are the characters in Stregonona? It's Big Anthony and Stregonona. Then we ask questions like, what is the character doing? Remember when we read Stregonona, you were like, Ms. Rideau, what is Big Anthony doing touching the pot when Stregonona told him not to? We ask questions like, why is the character doing that thing or action? Remember a lot of you asked me, but why did Big Anthony touch the pot when Stregonona told him not to? Right? We have a bunch of different questions that we can ask. We can also ask a question such as, where does the story take place? This is sounding awfully familiar to me. We just did it in the quick review. This would be related to our plot. No, it would be related to our setting, right? Where does the story take place? We can also ask, when does the story take place, looking at the time. This one sounds awfully familiar to me too. We just reviewed it. It's our setting, right? We can also ask the question of, how did the character do something in the story? I know this one's one we ask a lot when we're reading books, because we're always thinking, how did that happen? How did the character do this, right? All right, so now we're able to see the questions reader asks, but we know that to be great readers, we have to practice. So we're going to practice by reading the amusement park story. So first, I'm going to do a think aloud, and then you're going to do an activity. Amusement park problem. The smell of popcorn was in the air. I could hear kids laughing and screaming. People were everywhere. The breeze felt warm on my skin. It was a perfect day at the amusement park. As a great reader, let me think about what question do I want to ask right now? Because, right, I'm sure I have a question. So we said there had to be 5 W's and 1 H. Looking at my story, I have a question of, where is the main character right now? The main character is at the amusement park. But wait, text dependent. We have to go back to our text and see where we could find that. Where does it say that? It was the perfect day at the amusement park. So we know that our character is at the amusement park. Okay, let's read a couple more sentences and see if any more questions could come up when I'm reading, using the 5 W's and 1 H. My family and I wandered around the park, getting snacks and going on rides. Oh, I have a question. It's a who question this time. Who is the main character with, or our narrator with? Oh, that's right. Our narrator is with her family at the park. But how do we know that it's the family? We have to go back to our text. My family and I wandered around the park. So we know our narrator is with her family. All right, let's read a couple more lines. I loved almost all types of rides. I loved to go fast and to spin around, to go down hills and to get splashed. The only rides I didn't like were rides that turn you upside down. I have a question. What kind of rides doesn't the narrator like? Let's see. She doesn't like rides that turn her upside down. But how do we know this? Let's go back to our story. The only rides I didn't like were rides that turn you upside down. That was great. We were able to identify this. So now, like, if I was in the classroom, what I would do is I would continue reading for my little brother to the end, and I would have students participate by saying, like, the 5W and 1H question. They would create their own questions and share it aloud, and then they would, like, turn and talk with their partner and kind of try to find the evidence to support their answer. But since this is a virtual lesson, it would be really hard to do that because it would be like, how would I get the kids to do this? So what I would just do right now is I would send them off and say, while you're reading the story, I want you to think of 5W questions and 1H question, and they would just continue reading the story on their own. And then if we were in the classroom, the students would continue reading the story. It's a 3-page story, so they would like just keep reading after we did this like activity with the little paragraph. And then they would do the independent practice, which is what I was just talking about. So for the next 5 minutes, they would on their own continue to read the passage, and while they're reading the passage, they would create 10 questions. So the 10 questions they would create would be based on the 5 W's and 1H. So they would just create like 10 different questions, and it would have to be text dependent, going back to the text, kind of like the example. And then after they do that, I would give them, an ample amount of time to do that. And then once everyone's done, we would do a partner practice where on the loose leaf, which they just wrote the 10 questions, they would just write the 10 questions on the loose leaf and no answers. And then for the partner practice, they would trade loose leaf papers with their partner, and they would read each other's questions. So then first I would have them answer their partner's questions in like pencil on the paper, just so they could like write it out. And then the students would be given the opportunity to discuss with their partners, like, oh, so you said who was the main character. How did you know it was the main character? And they would go back to the text and show their partner where they found the answer. I would remind the kids that this was definitely not a quiz, and it's just assessing to see how good readers ask questions and how people answer your questions, and like kind of just posing that for the kids to see. And then after the partner practice, I would let them share, some of them share aloud, like, oh, can someone tell me what one of your partner's question is? And then maybe we would have the class answer the partner's question and see if it was the same exact thing as the person was thinking and what the partner answered to their buddy's question. After the partner practice, and like the sharing aloud, the students would then get an exit ticket. And I have the exit ticket right here. So for the exit ticket, what they would do is they would tell me one question they came up with today based on the text. Then they would tell me the answer to the question they came up with today, and then they would self-assess on the traffic light. So it's just kind of like having them review, and this would be good for me, so I would be able to see the data and be like, oh, well, tomorrow I need to work with this student or anything like that. Then after the exit ticket, the lesson would commence by me giving the students a homework assignment. So for the homework assignment, I just actually implemented a reading from a website in which I was able to take the reading, modify the reading down, and then I would have these kids create 6 questions based on the text. It would be mandatory that they have one who question, one what question, one where question, one when question, one why, and one how question each. So it would show, right here I have the homework assignment. So here's their directions, which tells them to read the passage, and they're going to think of these questions. And then here's where they would do the reading. They would do like the annotations and things like that. And then after, they would jot down their questions here. And then I would use the exit ticket and the homework to help me assess to see how I'm doing. And then after I give out the homework, I would be like, anticipate tomorrow's lesson where we're going to be working on thick and thin questions. So today was just kind of scaffolding in the beginning, and tomorrow we would get more in depth. And that's all. Hope you're well. Bye.